Hello everyone, welcome to the BASE 2021 workshop in conjunction with ARES 2021. My name is Nuhil Mehdy. Recently, I have defended my PhD dissertation at Boise State University in the United States. The paper I will be presenting today is titled Modeling of Personalized Privacy Disclosure Behavior, a Formal Method Approach. The co-author of this paper is Dr. Hoda Mehrpouyan, Assistant Professor at Boise State University. To assist individuals for a better privacy practice and to create user-centric and personalized privacy tools, the underlying model must account for individual users' privacy expectation, preferences, and their ability to observe and manage the rules and policies. In this paper, we present a methodology to formally model, validate, and verify personalized privacy behavior based on the analysis of the user's situational decision-making process. What is privacy, by the way? In the information domain, privacy refers to the right of a person to monitor and control the processing, exposition, and preservation of their personal or private information. A person himself or herself decide which of their information to share with whom and how, and the user's decision to share their personal information and the perception of risk that inform the decision vary from situation to situation. These situations may consist of various factors such as the type of the information, recipient of the information, and the trust source behind the motivation for sharing. However, past research has not paid much attention to how users' situational and personalized privacy disclosure behavior could be modeled based on practical and usable formal techniques. In the literature, this problem has been addressed by utilizing transition system-based formalism, semi-formal approach by utilizing access control techniques along with linear temporal logic, regular expression-based mathematical models and privacy norms, etc. And the utilized techniques include automata and transition system, finite state machine, linear temporal logic, regular expressions, etc. However, few shortcomings and limitations of these works include lack of clear insights regarding the usability and acceptance of the methodologies to the practical world. Also, most of them overlook the issue of personalized modeling and lack of proper outline for correctness and explainability. In our work, we use a model checking tool named UPAL to model users' self-reported privacy disclosure behavior by an extended form of finite state automata and perform reachability analysis for the verification of privacy properties through computation tree logic formula. We also describe the practical use cases of the methodology by representing the potential of formal technique towards the design and development of user-centric behavioral modeling. We also demonstrate the practical usability and describe the scalability of our proposed methodology. The dataset for this work came from a survey that we conducted with a total of 401 participants. Here is the overall flow of the survey. After consenting to the survey, each participant is assigned a set of 8 random hypothetical scenarios and asked to respond to some scenario-specific questions. Here is one sample scenario out of total 48. Each scenario gives the participant a situation in which they must answer whether or not they would share the information based on that situation. We wrote every scenario based on distinct combination of situational factors in which a trust source encourages the participant to share the information with the recipient. And these are all the factors and their values. From the table on the right side, we can see a randomly picked user agreed to share his or her private information in 3 out of 8 different given scenarios. For example, when the information type was relationship and an expert told to share this information with a family member. Also, when the information type was finance and an expert suggested to share with a colleague and so on. It is worth mentioning that we only model the positive sharing behavior of the user. In other words, left top figure contains a composition of 3 different scenarios where this user agreed to share the information with the recipients. Based on that, we model the privacy behavior by composing them into a data-dependent transition graph. Now for verification, if a new information sharing attempt, usually described as a CTL query, fails to comply with the model in this figure, then the model checker tells that the corresponding query was not satisfied and also shows a counterexample trace if available. The 3 small automata on the bottom are called observer models. The user-specific behavior model on top left, along with these 3 observer models, create the network of automata, otherwise known as a concurrent system in OPAL. For the validation of a model, we conduct simulation steps on the concurrent system, which is made out of all the finite state process. We do this by running the system automatically, which ensures that the models behave as intended without any unexpected crash or deadlock. We manually conduct some transitions in the behavioral model and also utilize the random simulation feature to make sure that the transitions are taken as expected. The left figure shows the UPAL simulation control panel, and the table on the right side contains a few verification queries that we check against the privacy disclosure model of the user. Query 1 tells that there exists a path where eventually the user is in share state and the information type was health, trust source was family, and recipient role was family. In simple words, we want to verify that this user share health type information with a family member when suggested by another family member. This verification query gets satisfied by the model checker, since there is a valid transition from idle to S2 to S5 to share state. By query 2, we want to verify that this user share health type information with a friend or online when suggested by a family member. This query does not get satisfied since the user had no history of sharing his health information to either friend or online, even when the trust source was a family member. Let's see a verification result with counterexample and trace. Query 3 asks for verifying for all paths. It should never be the case that the user is in share state and the information type was finance, trust source was expert, and recipient's role was friend, meaning a negative query that tells that this user never shared financial information with a friend when recommended by an expert. This query does not get satisfied by the model checker because the user actually had such an allowed policy. In other words, the user indeed shared financial information with a friend when recommended by an expert. We can see that in this table on table row, where the user shared financial information with a friend when recommended by an expert. We can even see the diagnostic trace when this query is executed, which tells that, no, I found a case when this thing happened, and here is the proof. Let's see this in a live demonstration in OPAL. Here is the user model, and here we can write the verification query. This selected one is the query 3 we are talking about. If we click on the check to verify this query, it will tell us to destroy the previous trace or not, which we allow here. And it shows on the bottom left corner that the property is not satisfied, meaning the user do share financial information with a friend when recommended by an expert. And then we can check that the diagnostic trace where you can see the user ended up in the share state, whereas the information type was in finance state and the trust source was in expert state and the recipient role was in the friend state. This is how we can check the verification result along with any trace if that is available. Also, let's see another query which is allowed. For example, user do share health information with family member when recommended by another family member. If we click check again, then it again tells us to destroy the previous trace record, which is fine, we allowed. Now we can see on the left bottom corner that the property is satisfied. And again, if we go back to the trace, we can see that the user is in share state, whereas the information type is in health, trust source is in family, and the recipient role is in family. Let's go back to the slide again. In this slide, we represent the privacy behavior model of a different user. Again, a user is selected from the dataset randomly. This user agreed to share the information in 6 out of 8 given scenarios. Therefore, we model his or her disclosure behavior in terms of network of automata. In this case, in order to demonstrate the potential of the formal method, we added some hypothetical constraints. We imposed limitations on the days of the week or the number of times a specific type of information could be disclosed using data variables and guards. For example, the data variables counter is to ensure that this user won't share health information on the online platforms for more than twice. Anyway, how practical and usable this formal method-based approach is. Normally, the verification engine of Upal is executed on the same computer as the user interface, but it can also run on a more powerful server, which allows us to host a complex and larger behavioral model. And that allows to deploy a standalone privacy management tool based on this methodology. Also, in early assessment of software design and development, it is possible to design, validate, and exhaustively verify users' privacy behavior model for further algorithmic transformation. This technique can also help the UI/UX designers to provide personalized privacy settings pages, which is important since the user interface of any software or apps plays an important role in providing its user with a more flexible and usable privacy settings page. Contributions of this work include model-based analysis of personalized privacy disclosure behavior, formulating personalized privacy policies, and detecting and reasoning unwanted disclosure behavior. Also, validating the proposed approach through demonstrating its practicality and usability. In the future, we want to extend the user's privacy behavior model to incorporate additional decision-making factors towards more granularity. We also plan to develop an end-to-end framework on top of Upal model checking tool. Thank you all. I had to skip too many technical details in the presentation because of time constraints. So please refer to the published paper for more detail. You all have a good day.